All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. I'm Chris, and this is Sid.
Sorry, you're Chris.
Sorry, I'm Kai.
What?
Let me reintroduce ourselves. I'm Kai, this is Sid, this is Talking Sheet, and we are joined by some very lovely guests today. We have Yis, and she is a former TV news anchor and a journalist at the Malay Mail and a writer. And then we are also joined by Mila, who is an actress. She's an actress, martial artist, and co-founder of Ryu Combat Academy. Yes.
One of the reasons why we wanted the both of you together, I mean, this is something Kai and I have been talking for some time, to curate this episode. We were talking about women and, women's issue and especially safety, especially with whatever that's going on nationwide, also internationally. The kind of cases that we are reading, be it like there's rape cases, there's murder cases, and then you hear cases of domestic violence that you don't have to tell, right? It's like almost every day. And then we thought of, okay, let's put an episode together, and we want two different personalities to come together and to speak about it, which is why we got the both of you.
But yeah, one of the big questions we wanted to ask is really the prompt of today is, are we failing our women? And when we say failing, are we failing them? How are we failing them in society, in professional settings, and in personal relationships? And that's really the prompt. So, what do you guys think? Are we failing our women?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. But how so?
The sad part about this whole thing, when you ask, are we failing women, is sometimes, and sadly in most cases, it's the women doing it to other women. And that is what's sad. We still get questions about, when you say you are being harassed or say you got molested. First question is, what were you doing? What were you wearing? Even if they don't ask you verbally, they don't ask you these questions verbally, they give you that look, and you just know, from a woman to another woman, you just know what's going on in their mind. What were you wearing? What did you do that triggered the other guy to do, the other person to do that to you? Even we have people arguing on the need for the current, days given to women for maternity leave. Is it really necessary? Which is actually prompting many women to stay away from the workforce. You cannot say, I want more women to participate in the workforce and then dictate to them how motherhood should be. These women just feel like, why am I even doing it?
Right.
There are so many things, and these are issues which have been happening throughout. I mean, I was even talking about it with you guys earlier. Domestic Violence Act only came here, was only formulated and enacted here, 1994. Domestic violence has been happening since when? Jurassic era. But it only became recognized as, okay, this is a serious problem in 1994, and then we have the Domestic Violence Act. In many ways, I feel we have been very, very slow in taking actions which should have been done way earlier, because these are not new issues. We are not living in an era where, oh my God, sexual harassment, what's that? We know what is happening. We know how it works. We know what happens and the kind of trauma that women go through. And yet, we seem to be in a state of denial until it becomes a serious issue. And in some cases, it's too late.
So I'm just curious. When you say, domestic violence only came in the 90s, right? And who do you think is genuinely responsible for things not coming out for the longest time?
Asian culture, domestic violence, it's sadly quite a synonymous thing. So it should not be something that's very new. I never knew this is happening. There should be a lot of voice pushing it, both women and men. Domestic violence doesn't just affect women, it affects men too. I mean, if you come from a household where your parents are constantly fighting and beating each other, girl child, boy child, you're still going to be affected.
Yeah.
So domestic violence is not something that's only going to affect women in the long run. It's going to affect everybody. So I don't understand why it took so long for us to act. Everybody need to act. It's not now. This is not the time for us to point fingers. You should have done it earlier. You know, why didn't you do it? The thing is, the issue was there. Why wasn't anybody there to say, look, let's put an end to this. We need to do something. Why was it only in 1994? It's for me that's very perplexing, and that's like a domino effect to a lot of other things, which I feel we are always in a state of denial. Tak adalah, until someone died. Now, now we need to act.
Right.
So,
But that's just one of the many issues that we are talking about concerning women, especially in this country. Let's just focus nationwide. Funnily, I was talking to my friend, and she told me a couple of years ago. She told me that if you were to walk up to any girl and ask her experience, every one of them has a story to tell.
yes.
And that's crazy, because ever since she said that, I've been talking to a lot of people, a lot of ladies, and, been asking their experiences. Everybody has some story to tell. Of course, the degree is different to what extent, and some people have worked their way through it, and some people are still suffering with it. But it's crazy to think every single one of them have a different version of the same story. And to think that we men don't have the similar experience, so that was what?
I think the crazier thing is when girls all share their stories and you can see around the table or whatever, the guys are, kind of trying to give, and I give credit to the men who try and empathize and try and understand, but all the women mostly are looking at each other with no surprise. You know what I mean? There's no surprise. And I think, yeah. Relatability, if anything.
Right.
As outlandish as a story might be, another female will look to her right or to her left and be like, yeah. Whereas someone like Kai, I think I've shared a couple of stories with you.
Yeah.
And I think at the time on the table it was Tria. And, she kind of looked at me like, yeah. And you were like, what? Why is this okay? And we're like, oh, we didn't say it was okay.
Right.
It's just not surprising. It's just not unusual.
Sounds like it's just like another day in the life of being a girl, being a woman.
And that's why I said we are always in a state of denial. It's so accustomed that everybody has a story to tell.
Yeah.
And we are numb because, you went through it. And it's not like we don't empathize. We can feel your pain and we're like, you too. Now. Now. Let's wipe our tears and move on.
I do want to bring something up that you mentioned earlier about, being in an all-girls school and whatnot. And my question is, like, why are the older generation of women doing this, in a sense that, not to say necessarily say older women, but when you said, you gave an example of like when something happens to a girl, the older woman will be like, what were you doing? What were you wearing?
Yeah.
Why are other women doing that to women? Is my question.
If we are talking about a generational issue, I think it's because how the women from our mothers' eras were subjected to that.
Yeah.
So, I would say they didn't know any better. It was just the way to be. It was seen as a discipline and it was passed on. So somebody has to put a stop to it. So our generation, we need to step in and say, no, this is not right. You cannot continue doing this in the name of discipline. This is violation. Even if it's done by a woman to another woman, whatever it is, it's a violation of my privacy. You cannot be doing that. So the way, it's a very strict setting. In most all-girls school, almost every all-girls school, it's very strict, like an all-boys school, right? It's always very strict because in an all-girls school, it's mostly the female teachers who will be the disciplinarians, and in an all-boys school, it's the male teachers. So there's always that discipline that's brought from another generation and being instilled in us as this is the way to go, So you absorb it, and you think, this is how I protect myself, and then you do it to other people. Not knowing that this is very uncomfortable, and at one point you start reflecting on all of it because it was so okay, you didn't know it was wrong, you didn't know any better, right? And then as you grow up, you realize, no, why did I let myself, why did I subject myself to all those things? And this is what's happening this is what's happening to our generation. A lot of us, we realize it much later because some will be like, kenapa tak cakap hari tu? Why were you so quiet? They wouldn't know. The first reaction when something like an issue of molestation, when someone molests you, the first reaction you get is you become numb. You would not know how to react. You freeze. And I'm speaking from my own experience. That's how it is. You freeze because you don't know what's happening. You don't know how to react. You may not even be able to process it until maybe a year later or 2 years later. Somebody comes up to you and tells their story, and then you'll be like, hey, hold on a minute. This happened to me. So which is why when survivors come out and tell their stories, we should not brush them off. There's a lot of truth in a lot of these things because it takes a long time to process. It takes a lot of, sometimes we tend to feel guilty ourselves. Did I behave in a way that made that person do that to me?
Right.
Because that's what you are thought. How were you behaving? What did you wear? How were you talking? So you always have all that filters in your head before coming to the end saying, hey,
So you find your own fault first before you even start.
You try to filter and see what did I do wrong. The thing is, you could have not done anything wrong. You could have just been, being yourself. Someone just felt they had the right to do anything to you.
Right.
It's a very tough situation.
What you pointed out, Sid, I think we should go into more in depth later on, which is the fact that women, I feel like, especially in Asian cultures, are ingrained to take the blame for any issue. I feel like the first instinct is to try and own up to, in your own head, try and own up to maybe what you might have contributed to the problem instead of going first to, because we're so used to the other party being excused, So I find it really interesting and sad that women only feel strength in coming out with their stories when we have strength in numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it like a cultural gaslighting kind of thing going on?
Yeah.
Whereby Asian women gotta keep quiet, and then then only when it feels safe, or even then, if we feel safe, we may feel safe and strength in numbers today, but a week later, something else happens, and you move on to the next thing.
And then that strength in numbers can only be accessed if the one person goes out of their way to, you know what I mean?
To break it and,
to risk
it all.
Risk it all.
To start a movement like Me Too. People are criticizing, but when everybody came out with their stories and then people realized, shit, this is a real issue.
But why is it only real when 50 plus women, complain about the same offender?
Right.
How many times is too many?
Yeah, and that's a point. That's a point because in some situations they'll be like, oh, you're the only one complaining.
Yeah.
Nobody else is saying anything about that guy. You're the only one saying, so maybe you are the problem. So you get singled out.
Yeah.
You get singled out. And then you feel like, you get so accustomed being told that again and again, then you feel like maybe I'm the problem. And then you keep quiet.
Yeah.
And you don't say anything.
Gaslighting happens.
I'm just trying to understand this. Were there moments where you guys have been in this situation and the first thing that you do is to sort of evaluate yourself, am I at fault?
Yes. I remember speaking to my friends and I said, the first line that I was so accustomed to saying is, did I project myself in any way that made him behave like that to me? The first thing that I'll always reference when I was talking to them is that I wasn't dressed badly.
Right.
I will always say that, I was dressed fine. Because in my head, it's always, hey, did I wear something that made him feel that way? And it's usually not the case. So it has been so ingrained in me until a certain point when I realized I should not be, justifying myself that way. When I tell someone my story, I shouldn't say, I was wearing fine. Because if I keep doing that to myself, I'm going to then project that questions to the other girls who come up to me with their stories.
And then I don't know about you, but do you feel the extra need to specify what you were wearing when you're telling the story to another woman? Because I feel that way.
I do. Which is why the first line of defense for me, it's, you know what, girl, I was actually wearing okay. I wasn't even wearing something in a way that triggered him to act that way.
Yeah.
It's such an instinct to just go to the dressing part for me first.
Right.
Like the first line of defense.
The first line is, no, before you say anything, I was dressed okay.
Okay.
So you don't judge me first. Listen to my story.
No, it's so fascinating. So you're saying, so there's a probability for you wouldn't know whoever the other person is, female, right? Given it's another lady listening to a story, but you still have to defend yourself that I'm not at fault, even though you might understand this, but I still have to make myself very clear.
Yeah. Oh, of course. See, yeah. That goes without saying.
You know
for
why?
us.
Because some of these other girls, the questions they ask is also without saying it verbally is, and you know what that I is trying to communicate to you because they have gone through the same thing. And so they're probably, in a way to protect you, were you? Then you say no.
Right.
No, I was dressed okay. But they're not, some of them are not doing it in a way to insult you because they've gone through the same thing. Again, it's projection.
100%.
Goes on and on and on.
And you know what I have to say, for me personally, and I know I speak for many other of my friends who have gone through the same thought process, when something happens to me, I don't even go there yet. My first evaluation process is this even worth bringing up? I always go through that. I'm always just like, okay, if I say something, this is going to make that guy or that party look bad. Why should I care if they look bad if I'm the one that feels like I suffered? Because my suffering, one person's suffering is different to another's, whatever, but it's suffering nonetheless, right? I always weigh in my head whether it's worth bringing up, just in case it becomes something bigger, because I don't want it to turn into like a she cried wolf situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to speak about it because you don't want to make an issue. You don't want to point the other person. That's your first immediate thought, right?
Yeah.
I think it's also because I think this is what I've seen at home culturally, right? We are always, the women are always expected to cater to the men, however they feel. And this is not just the men in your immediate family, not just your father or your grandfather or your brother, but even your uncle that is visiting your house once in a year. Because I have experienced this where my mom will just look at my sisters and say, hey, go and change your pants.
Right.
Wear something, cover yourself up, because your uncle is coming. I'm like, what is uncle going to do? Why does she have to wear a longer pants,
To make your uncle more comfortable.
Uncle more comfortable. So I think,
Yes.
and it's my mother's a lovely woman, she's wonderful. But the thing is, I think all these things, in a way, it's for them to protect their daughters in some way or the other. They don't.
It's a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
It's
They
a
don't want you
subconscious
to, they don't want you to be subjected to any of this thing. You know what? Better to cater to the men than being subjected to this kind of whatever that's going to go on when the uncle comes to the house.
Basically, why you want problem? Just go dress. It's
Yeah.
a very Asian thing. So this is what I mean when I say sometimes, sadly, it's the women who are sometimes the problem. As much as we also end up becoming the victim, but that's because we also start this whole thing,
Yeah.
We need to change it.
But, diverting back to whatever we were talking about earlier, safety issues, right? I'm just curious. How did you feel? Because there's also this active debate about people always say that girls in Malaysia are lucky in that sense that things that happen, say in India, doesn't happen in Malaysia for that reason.
Damn.
People always say that. I've always heard this argument, especially from this pseudo-intellectual men talking about, Malaysian girls should be very lucky. I'm like, okay, you're doing bare minimum and you want credit for that.
You compare to a situation like that.
A humanitarian
you compare to
crisis.
the worst of things and say we are better off. That's
It's
just
funny because I was
nonsensical.
talking to this really, really incredibly smart man, and he was saying, you see girls in India, they cannot walk on the streets at night, but Malaysian girls are fine. They're doing well. They can.
Not
I'm
very
like, bro,
intelligent if he has to do that kind of comparison.
That's true. That's where the IQ dropped a bit. So my question is, would you say the same? Like, was it safe, or do you think like, oh, shut up, there's nothing safe about it?
Okay, well, I feel like safety, there's a lot of different avenues to explore there. Not just physical safety, but maybe spiritual safety, if you guys are open to that kind of discussion, or even an emotional or mental kind of safety. I mean, I might be safe from shanks, on the street, but
Right.
And in some cases, I'm not, for sure. But I'm just saying, compare that to being catcalled or being stared at or basically being undressed with their eye, and like being pointed at, whispered, like as I'm walking past. Does that count as my safety being in danger? Because I think it does. I think,
It's the threat of like something could happen.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, it feels like from
It's
what you're
anxiety.
saying. And your personal space is being violated.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Almost always, in fact, here.
Does that happen on like every time you go out? Do you
Yes.
okay. Every time you go out, you feel at some point your personal space is violated.
I think people,
100% of the time.
That man who I was speaking to, at least he thought, just because it's not violent enough,
Doesn't
just
mean
because
it's not a problem.
doesn't mean it's not a problem,
Yeah.
because if somebody is catcalling you, that's not an issue compared to what's happening. Like someone is getting killed and whatnot. I'm like, what?
Right.
See, it all starts with, it's not a big deal. Just in case we forget, we can't. It just happened recently. The bus driver who made a TikTok video.
Oh, the Abang bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, a lot of the comments, some of it were like, oh my God, this is so cute. Because I have a habit of going through the comments because I like to assess what people are thinking about certain topic. Being a journalist, when I put up a story, I want to know what are people's reactions to it so that I know what kind of acceptance or what kind of comments or what's the thought process that's happening. When I read some of the comments, I'm like, there you go. It's not the only problem. That video had like 10.5 million likes. So he's clearly not the only problem. It always starts as a harmless thing.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to culturally, all these cultural influences. Ala, main je. That's how it starts. Main je. Which is why, when Mila said, if I'm always going to be out and I'm going to have to look behind and see if I'm safe, not safe.
Not safe.
And to the men or the women also, comparing situations in Malaysia to India, please stop it. It's not a very good thing to compare something worst off and say, hey, we are better off. No. Catcalling is very common. I think, Sid, you would know.
Not that I've done it.
And
No,
I know.
Never.
Sid,
Disclaimer,
here's where you
Sid
get
has not
cancelled.
done it.
It all
Not
comes
that
out
I
now.
know how. Catcalling is quite common. I've been catcalled many times. And this is when I start assessing what I wore.
Oh, yeah.
This is how it started. Because, from my teenage years, this happened and everything. At one point, I'll just share, another situation. When I was covering the red shirt rally some years ago, I was being chased, followed by this one guy. And I had to run to my male friends. I said, look, this is happening. I need help because I can't get him off my back. And he came. The boys formed a circle around me. And my friend asked him, what do you need? He said, he just wants to get to know me. He's like, why do you want to know her? No, she's not. She's not interested to know you. Go. So the other guys, my journalist friends, formed the group to make sure he can't. He tried to just,
Just go in.
and I was terrified by then. And I'm like, I'm like a gung ho person. I'm like, I'm just like cool with everybody.
Right.
But this one really made me like, okay, this is not one of those situations where I can just hey and walk off. He was there for a bit and then he left. I was like momentarily unable to process things, to do my work. It's a rally, so I have to be at few places at one go trying to cover the sentiments. I could not do it. And then I found out this guy is mentally challenged. And people were asking me, why didn't you press charge? Like, why didn't you press charges, make a report? And at that point, I start thinking, some guilt, just seeped into me as well. I'm like, what can this guy do? And I also know he was being used by some political people. In every political party, there'll be this gung-ho one, this crazy one, this blind loyalty, and he's one of those. So it made it even worse. Like, he can be an easy scapegoat for anything.
Yeah.
So I thought of all of it, and although I had every reason, and I was not the only one, some other female journalists also had some issues. I decided to not do it. I felt bad for him. What can he do? And I tried to dig up a little bit about him. And when I knew what was happening, I'm like, look, this guy is already being used. He probably doesn't even know what he's doing is wrong. And he's doing it.
Right.
So what can I do at that point? I said, never mind. We'll just let this go. But you know, in my case, I probably had the luxury of evaluating my situation, but that's not the kind of luxury other women have. They just let go because nobody would listen to them.
Yep.
In my case, I was lucky. I had friends who were supportive. My bosses stood up to me, helped me. So that kind of environment and situation that I had, it's not always something that every woman will have, you know. So it's always like that. It's always a harmless situation.
And it's also very difficult for you to speak about one without having to bring out another problem that...
Yeah.
It's very
you know,
hard.
It's very hard.
hard.
Because I realized it's been 37 minutes since we started talking. We started somewhere and then it's just leading to another issue. And I'm like, no, we can't do away. We can't not speak about this.
No, you're right.
But then it keeps growing.
You see the problem that we're
it's-
going through? You are expected to be everything and sometimes nothing. You must menstruate, you must bear children, go to work, be a responsible woman, take care of your husband, take care of your children. And this conversation, every time a woman leaves her family to go take her me time, who's taking care of the kids? What will happen to your husband? Why? Die without food, is it? Why can't there be equality in the household? I'm still hearing these questions in my circle, you know. Hey, we are going away, so how about the kids? What about the husband? Kids is fine. Why the husband will die? You can't take care of yourself. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be very blunt. Maybe I shouldn't be sorry about this. If you cannot
Don't be sorry.
take care of yourself, you cannot cook yourself a decent meal while your spouse is away, I'm sorry, but it's quite a failure to me.
Yes.
You cannot do basic things for yourself. Your upbringing is not right. And that should not come at my expense. I am not a rehabilitation center to fix you.
You're not Bob the Builder.
I'm not.
Facts.
You know, probably
Whereas-
break the hell out of you. I'm not tasked to fix you. I think you would know, Sid, this line in our community still exists. Oh, you know, once they're married, things will be okay. He will be fixed
That's what
once
they all
he's
say.
married. No. In some cases, I've seen it happening worst, end up in divorce. You know, just how much can the women take?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not your mother. I didn't marry you to be your nanny. We're supposed to be partners, equal partners in this life.
Yeah.
And then here I am. The only thing that's lacking is probably putting a diaper on him. You know,
Yeah.
everything is being done. And I've been hearing conversations about women saying, I can't take a holiday in peace without feeling guilty.
Guilty.
Yeah.
I
was
feel
gonna say,
so
the
much guilt.
Yeah.
One day without a video call. Why no video call? Why? You don't think about the household. I've given you too much freedom. Excuse me? You're giving me freedom.
Who are you?
Do you think that the existence of very red pill mentality, men like Andrew Tate and the rest of them, are looked up to more often now because men in this generation feel like they need more validation and acceptance? Because it seems that way. Like from other men, I mean.
I think in the past, it was easier to say, like, you know, if you ask men what defines a man, you're going to get different answers.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the past, there were things like rites of passage, right? To be
Yeah.
a man, I need to go through this trial where, I don't know, a whole bunch of ants eat my arm, or I need to, like, achieve these things
Right.
to be like, I'm a man.
Yep.
Or like, you know, I get a job, I have a house, I have this. Now, you know, there are some men who I look up to who don't drive a car.
Yeah.
But they have other values. I go, that is what that's what I respect in a guy. But I think because there's such a polarity in terms of what is the right guy to look up to. I mean, look at political leaders. There's, you know, in the past, you had people who went through war, like Churchill. You know, his speeches are looked up to see, like, that is what a leader is. And now it's just like, look at any sort of leader we have in any setting, and it's the stuff that comes up about them. It just sort of disillusions. So when you have this red pill of like, I will sell you this, I will make you into this, people lap that up. They just want that.
They want that
Quick
because
results.
that's what they deem successful.
You know, I also think, there's this who role models like Tate and whatnot, the reason why they're doing so well, because today, right, in 2024, or at least in the last 5 years, you can see that feminist men are actually speaking.
Yeah.
You know, back in the days, they were not really well aware of the issue, and even if they were aware of, what women are going through and they really support and they want to speak about it, there's very small number of people. So there's, you don't find a sense of let's all speak together. So it's always that one man trying to speak, where everybody trying to shut him up. So today you can see clearly there are two different type of people, a different group of men. One is that really supports women and they're feminists and they speak for their rights and whatsoever. And then you have the alpha male who really feels like women are whining all the time, right? So with the existence of this feminist men, so this alpha, I feel like this alpha men, they feel like a bit threatened about their position, where they're at. So when you have this someone like Andrew Tate, and when they speak, when they push this idea of what manhood and manliness should be, so it validates the alpha men, that this is what it's meant to be men. Tate is right. I'm gonna follow you. So all this feminist men, pussies, you're all crying, you're all fighting, you just want to get laid. That's all you're supporting. That's why you're supporting another women. That's why you're feminists.
I think the problem is the way men view feminism. I've heard some conversations which are like mind-boggling. But again, I suppose it's how the people in that league project the ideology. So some feminists, some men, I've heard when I ask what do you understand, because it's very easy to say I'm a feminist, or it's very easy to criticize. But what do you know about it? Oh, some of you girls just want your rights to flash your bulu ketia, in public. Nobody wants to see that. Okay, I'm kind of worried about the content you've been watching.
Yes, you got the right meaning of feminism. Very proud of you.
Yeah.
It's all about armpit hair.
Yes.
You're right. That's what we want to fight for.
And I was like, bro, what have you been watching? What's the algorithm that's been coming
Facts.
on your feed?
And that doesn't help too. The whole algorithm. You lock into
see.
something,
Correct.
you start seeing more of it.
Correct. So you start
Social
seeing more
media.
content from people who do that.
Yeah.
To me, that is just a way of expressing yourself. It does not encapsulate the idea of feminism. Whole ideology encapsulate a lot more. Women's rights to go to school. And have you read about period poverty? People did not know Malaysia had period poverty. I broke the story some time ago. Because some girls are so embarrassed by it, they don't want to go to school. They drop out of it. They don't know what is period. They don't know what's happening to their bodies.
Or even worse, they know and then they're like, and then they don't want to talk about it.
Correct. And we do not have another underlying problem. Sexual education. It's still a taboo. Anybody who talks about it, oh, you pervert. So your
But
idea...
Abang Bus is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
know?
is chomel, harmless. And this is pervert. Kids get a lot of infections today too.
Yeah.
And then they get embarrassed. They don't want to go to school because they don't know what's happening to themselves.
Yeah.
Parents get embarrassed about it. How to bring this one to a government clinic? Cannot. And you probably subject them to some traditional treatment, and what happens to them? You don't know. So why are we doing this? Education is a way to eradicate problems like this. But when you look at issues like this as a taboo, when the problem is the taboo, and then, where do we go with this? You talk about sexual education, until now the need for it. Everyone's like, ayo, tak payahlah. Then at what age are these kids going to learn? Because kids today, I have the access to internet like never before.
I was going to say,
they're so much
they'll find out
advanced.
in ways that you wouldn't prefer.
Unconventional
as a
ways.
parent. Yeah.
And ways that, they probably don't want to come and talk to you. They were
Yeah.
like, let's put what I learned to the test. And what do you get? Pregnancy.
Yes.
Out
Or
of wedlock
infections
pregnancy.
and problems.
Yeah. You get babies thrown into baby hatches. Where are we going with this? What is the actual taboo here?
Because abortion isn't even considered here.
Yeah.
So that's a big one, obviously. This topic is a huge one. Why is it that more educated countries think differently to less educated countries about abortion?
But it also, like, what you said about this sexual education, right? You don't teach the other gender, so to speak, about, like, for example, you don't teach the boys about what the girls go through.
Yeah.
They don't. No, they don't.
You know,
They
so
don't.
for, like you said, I was also not aware of period poverty.
Can I share something that I've never publicly said before?
Go for it.
Whenever I'm going out, I mean, this country's really, really, really warm, guys.
Yeah,
It's
very.
really warm and humid. And sometimes I'm just like, you know what? Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, no, it's talking shit.
You know what? Like, keep pressing it. Sometimes I'm like,
let out that rage. Send that rage.
yeah. And I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to dress how I feel comfortable dressing. I already tell myself, I have like a bit of an internal dialogue. If I need to pretend that I'm foreign, I will. If I have to pretend that I'm Filipino, because sometimes I have a slightly ambiguous
How's your
racial
Filipino
background.
accent? I'm just
Sometimes
joking.
I have to pretend. I have no choice.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's like Mila's not in the room.
Sometimes it's like that. But sometimes I gotta be like, you know what? If someone asks, oh, this girl, because I'm quite Malay presenting for the most part, I think. They might be like, oh, tak senonoh lah. Or like, why can't she think of the environment that she's in? I get those looks. I get that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Like, I think if I go into that, we're going to be here for hours and hours.
Oh,
But it's just, even that, I have to like self-talk for like 20 minutes to myself in the mirror before even putting on a shirt that's sheer. Or
Oh wow.
yes.
That's pretty insane.
I'm wearing a sweater right now and it is hot in this country. We're indoors right now, but I had to think, okay, if people see this footage,
Right.
Yeah.
Gotta do the damage control in your brain.
Yeah. Am I suffering in this? Hell yeah. You know what I mean? But it's just what it is. It's what we have to go through. And I think the layers, if you're Muslim on paper, boy, those layers stack up. Like those layers are more than I can even explain. Yeah.
I also got to ask, like, in terms of that, because you brought up martial arts, and this is something I also wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
Does knowledge of that actually help in any way? Because in theory, you would think like,
Yeah.
yes, but then we've had cases of people being victims, and they were black belts. You know?
Well, to a very, very large extent, I will say absolutely it does help. And I'm obviously a massive advocate for everyone training martial arts, not just women.
Of course.
But myself being a woman that is aware that maybe I'm seen as conventionally attractive to a lot of people. I know that there's that layer of I'm a target.
Right.
For a lot of these things, or I'm a smaller frame universally compared to, because I'm Asian.
So they become a
compared
bigger
to-
target.
Yeah, because I might be seen as, easier to take down, easier to approach, and then they will likely have the strength advantage on me.
Right.
Things like that. That I had no choice. It was part of my responsibility to just learn to get more well equipped. You know what I mean? And while I was studying abroad, especially. In many cases, I was alone, so I had to think about my safety when I didn't have a brother to call or a boyfriend or a male friend or an uncle or whatever, That's just, I had no choice. It does help to a very large extent. And I always explain in my classes and everything that self-defense is, yes, you learn the moves and, you kind of have this, this succession of moves that you kind of have to drill so that it becomes muscle memory, and that. But it's more about your posture, more about how you carry yourself, more about the aura that you give off.
Okay.
That having this knowledge gives you that sense of confidence and that sense of, because for the attacker, a lot of the thought that goes into the attacking depends on how that person's demeanor is like.
Right.
You know what I mean? You wouldn't know if this person's a black belt if they're hunched over and they're looking shy and they're quivering or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they're seen as an easy target. But once you have martial arts knowledge, you're able to carry yourself in a way where your chest is a bit higher, your shoulders are relaxed.
Right.
The way you carry yourself already, the attackers are like, okay, maybe that's not such a good option. to go and maybe I will not win. You know what I mean? That being said, we have to look at this at a very objective and biological standpoint.
Right.
Men are stronger than women physically, period. Coming from a background where I am competing in martial arts, you know, and training with men all the time. I mean, and these are people that I feel safe with, you know, even then, sometimes I feel like, oh shit, this danger is different. You know, the danger here, the threat here is different, even if I'm more skilled or more experienced in my martial arts journey compared to this man who comes in. There's so much raw strength there that I wouldn't know how to deal with if I was panicked, if I didn't feel prepared. So if someone comes up to you, the point of having that self-defense knowledge is to know how to react. That's all. Or even not reacting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because
Win the fight before the fight actually happens when it gets sized up.
That's it. You know, because when the size comes into play, you'll lose. A woman will lose 99% of the time, sadly. But that's just how it is. That's just biology. You know what I mean? Physiologically, we don't have the tools. So we have to go out of our way to find and
level the playing field, if you will.
It's basically just leveling the playing field. That's it.
But I think whatever you're saying actually answers the old age question. You know, should we? Oh, she must be okay because we're sending her to taekwondo class, or where she's learning martial arts class, so she must be okay. She must be safe.
She can take care of herself.
She can take care of herself. You know, I think people think, a lot of people have this idea of, oh no, you're just weak. You know, physically you have to be strong. So go to gym and go to some martial arts class, and you'll be able to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, in some unfortunate incident where somebody's molesting you, then you can fight. But it's never the permanent solution to this problem. It's never by sending these girls, but by educating your son, asking the perpetrator to not do it in the first place. I feel like that
don't do that.
Has to be, you know.
The kind of message that's going out from this is that you're encouraging us to always be in a fight or flight mode.
Yes.
You know, and that's very unhealthy because that constantly gives us this fear, this paranoia that I'm not safe anywhere. I'm just not safe because, you know, I have a reproductive organ that's not like the men. And that makes me a target. You know? So you see, which is what I meant. Of course, self-defense is important. Like you said, it's for everybody. It should not be something to be picked up, you know, because you're a girl, you have to learn self-defense. It should not be that way. It should be learn it to protect yourself in any situation, both boys
protect
and
yourself
girls.
and others.
Protect yourself and others, you know. You protect yourself and you try to protect others if you can. That should be the message. It's not, you know, unfortunately, you're a bit different because you're a girl, so you have to go for self-defense because we cannot be there to protect you all the time. That should not be the way. You're already teaching them, go in fight or flight mode since they're young. That's what they will hold until they age, you know. It's just sad, you know, because simple things such as being a girl, doing girly things can actually get you unwanted attention. I remember an uncle and good Lord, I cannot believe he said this. So we were all on a family trip to Singapore. And I think I was in high school at that time, or close, you know, about to finish high school. And it was school holidays. And I had begun experimenting with kohl. I like eyeliners, the Indian eyeliner. So I started wearing it and I liked it. And I wore it. And I got this, you know, ooh, why are you so dressed up? You know, like that kind of a look, you know. And then when we went to Singapore, I remember, and I also noted there were quite a number of men looking. And this one uncle of ours came up with a brilliant hypothesis saying that, you know why those men were all looking? Because when you wear thick kohl, when the kohl is like so thick and black under your eyes, it's actually giving vibe like a courtesan, like a prostitute. So they're probably thinking, is this that?
I'm so sorry, how old were you?
I
High school, right?
Yeah, I think I was 17, going 18, yeah, thereabout. And that made me feel so cheap because I was like, so many girls are wearing kohl, but why is it when I wear it,
You're
it's
reduced.
giving something. It's me
It's an
giving
invitation.
something. Yeah. And of course, any mother would want to protect the daughters. Of course, my mom, got angry and, maybe you should not be doing this anymore, this kind of thing. Because again, there's 3 girls in my family. There's always that burden to protect the girls, right? And my late father, he was a police officer, having seen the worst kind of crime that you can ever imagine. They also go into a protective mode, not because they really want to annoy you, but it just becomes a cause for them as well. And then when you have people making irresponsible remarks like this, just for a simple
And within
thing,
the family.
you wear a kohl, you look like a hoe, and then you become the wrong person. You are the one triggering everything. I remember that line until today because I cannot believe he said that. And of course, my mom got very scared. Oh, is this what it means? Because it comes from a man, right?
Yeah, that's
so
how
that's
they view.
probably.
Yeah.
Oh, he knows how the men think, so it must be true, and he's doing us a favor.
He's trying to help you.
Yeah, so I stopped wearing kohl for a bit because I just felt like I don't want to expose myself to that. Again, fight or flight mode. Why? Now when I wear it, it's you look nice and everything, but that trauma, those things that he said, it still sticks to me until today. At one point, I was said I looked like a prostitute, and it's giving that vibe, when it was harmless. So was I the problem? And I remember I was wearing an all black outfit that day, completely covered. I was wearing a black kurti, and I was wearing a skirt that was below my knees. See how I emphasized below the knees?
Yeah.
You
The
would
fact
know
that you
why.
have to sort of explain
Below.
what you're wearing.
Yeah,
To
and
sort
that's
of,
also a problem here in our country where
Constantly have to
anything you
justify
wear below your
yourself.
knees,
Yeah.
below your
Yeah.
knees, And I remember that very well. To me, I was not dressed in a way that invigorates attention. It's just harmless kohl became a narrative so negative, and I had to be disciplined. So the simplest thing, just me being a girl, was a problem. So it's ridiculous how they try to confine us girls into a certain environment because we are protecting you. Because we're protecting you. Like what you said.
Yeah.
Don't wear kohl, you look like a prostitute, you look like a hoe by the road, don't wear it. Why your hair is like that? All that. It was not helpful that I was slightly bigger than the other girls in my family. And that the attention came more on me because, you're the kind of girl the men will look at, so you got to be careful. You got to be most careful. You got sisters after you. You got to be careful. You got to set the path. So you keep setting the path until you lose yours.
Yeah.
You don't know where to find yours.
Yeah.
You keep giving because you're supposed to protect. You're supposed to learn. You lead. Then where is the you that you want to be? Being told to an under 18 child, you look like a prostitute because you're wearing a kohl, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
And now in this day and age, this modern age where people are more open with talking about taboos and talking about, mental health and how feelings can be feelings are taken more into account nowadays than they ever were, which has its
Pros and cons.
But now I'd be lying if I said I also didn't feel resentment sometimes towards my older female figures in my life that can acknowledge when those things. Now that girl, do you hear what that guy said to her? Not nice.
Oh my
But
Lord.
then how come when that thing was said to me,
It was okay.
but you told me to brush it off.
Yeah.
Like, how come you didn't advocate for me back then? And you told me to don't make it a big deal. Come on, you don't make a scene.
It's giving hypocrisy a lot.
Oh, it's giving
you know?
hypocrisy.
A lot. Like, I remember questioning, hey, how come you are telling it, now it happened to her, it's okay, but the same thing happened to me.
Yeah, and probably,
I was
the
the
same
one
thing
being
happened to you
disciplined. Yeah,
as
I was the
well.
one being disciplined. I was the one
Yeah.
being told to behave. Now that girl is facing it like, oh, you're so pavam, So I was not a pavam case, is it? I was just, you will grow out of it.
I do have an anecdote that I feel like I feel safe enough to share of something I went through in terms of a man who, you know, tried to, growing up, a plethora of stories, both in my family and from not like outside my family as well. Men telling me how to look or dress or whatever. But this was a lot more recent. So this was a relationship with a man that I had, and this man was abusive. And I still have issues sometimes admitting that I was in an abusive relationship, because I view myself as someone who can stand her ground, can protect herself. You know, I'm pretty staunch. I feel like I can stand 10 toes on the ground. So I think maybe it scares me to think, what about most of my other sisters out there who maybe aren't as, you know, strong, whatever that means. Right? So, but anyway, even being that kind of person that I feel like is not a pushover, I was in an abusive relationship. And this man, at first, he didn't show those colors, right? Because we always
They
put
all
up
don't.
our no, none of them do. They put up their best front at the start, and he positioned himself as a guy that was chill, that was very like, you know, open-minded, and I'm like, great, I'm like that too. Like, I'm so really forward and really, and I'm like, great, then we can vibe. Suddenly, as you know, I stayed with him longer, and he felt more possessive over me, I should say. He would start not allowing me to be in spaces where maybe there would be other men, which is a problem because I train jiu-jitsu, right? So that's one of my biggest passions. And he would find every excuse for me not to go to training because there's going to be other men there. Or I'm going to the gym, and he'd be like, why must you gym every day? And I'm like, at the time, maybe I was going through exams or something, and I'm like, oh, I'm just kind of stressed. I would find my own reasons. I didn't have to, actually.
Right, but you didn't pin it on him. It was like
I could have just said, well, because I want to. But instead, you know, I had to consider his feelings and be like, oh, I'm sorry that it bothers you. I'm not sure why, but I'm just trying to, you know, trying to sweat, and he'll be like, okay, what are you wearing? Like, he would ask me, and then, you know, at the time I was in Australia. I was studying there, and you know, he'd be like, it's not even that warm outside. Like, why? You can wear a jacket.
Oh, this was an actual conversation regularly you were having with him.
It like I said, like it was kind of bit by bit, and then it became every day. And then it became, you're not allowed to, you know, it went from like, oh, you know, like with a smile on his face, like, do you have to wear that?
Like a question to an order.
Yes. Suddenly it became, don't wear that. Throw that away. He made me throw, and listen, abusive relationships are complicated. You know, they're really complex. And so looking back on it, I'm like, what? How did I listen to that order, that command? But I ended up, it got to a point where I had to throw away clothes that I liked to make him feel better, because he told me he was uncomfortable with it. And of course, me being like, I'm making someone feel uncomfortable. I'm making someone I care about feel uncomfortable. Of course, clothes they mean nothing to me. You mean something to me. So yeah, I'll throw these clothes away. And so, Kai, I think you know that I'm a makeup artist by profession. I don't dabble in it too much these days, but I was for many, many years. And it was also a passion of mine. So he would ask me, why do you feel like, why must you wear makeup today? Like, why? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'm just trying to self-express, you know, just having fun. It got to a point that my friends were kind of like, because they know it's something that I enjoyed doing. So they were like, oh, like, it's been a while since you've, like, you know, put on some makeup and just had fun. And because, like, I'm going on, like, just friend dates with them, maybe just hanging out, and they're just like, oh, I mean, that's awesome. Maybe you don't feel like you need to wear so much makeup, which is fine. But
after a while,
they just were wondering, you know, and I didn't really know how to answer, because the truth was just that my boyfriend doesn't want me to wear makeup.
Yeah.
He wouldn't let me wear makeup. He would.
Oh, he wouldn't let you.
He wouldn't let me
Okay.
wear makeup. I didn't have his permission.
I see.
And for me, it was, it was, okay, me wearing makeup, or in order to avoid a massive fight with him where he is going to be terrifying and abusive. And why go through all that? I'll just not wear the makeup. It's not even, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had to sacrifice all these things just to avoid the
Confrontation
Confrontation
and like, having to
from
deal
him.
with problems. And,
yeah,
Okay.
because he would get abusive, not just verbally. There were moments that were physical,
Oh, God.
quite, So I'm like, okay, I'll do everything I need to do to avoid that situation happening. So whatever upsets him, I just won't do it. So it got to a point he would even, like, it sounds so stupid saying it out loud, but even like having a protein shake, he'd be like, why? Why must you, what's it for?
Wow, a lot of micromanaging.
Really micro stuff. And it sounds so weird. It's just like, it's just a protein shake. But I think in his mind, it was like, that means she'll be,
A threat.
yeah,
Jeez.
Inviting threats.
inviting threat or looks, because she'll be more built.
Well, yeah, threat. Basing like, oh, other guys are going to start looking at you.
Right.
They might approach you.
Even,
And
yeah,
that threatens our relationship.
chapstick. Like, I'm talking about literal lip balm. He went through my stuff and made sure that the lip balms that I had didn't have like a tint to it. That.
Wow.
It
I'm
was
beginning to think
fascinating.
it probably likes makeup and he wanted you.
Here, the whole time is like, I want to be you.
He checked your
Brother.
lip balm for tint. I think he was into
Yeah.
that.
So,
So
did you
crazy.
check all the clothes? Maybe he took back. He's like, this is mine now.
Did you catch
No, but I
did you
threw
catch
this
him
out.
dressing
he
up?
just went through
I
my
threw
trash.
this out.
No, but then to
Girl,
think.
how did you get this?
It's like was it the movie The Danish Guy?
You could just ask.
Oh, The Danish Girl. There you go.
Yeah, the Danish girl. Brother, I mean, no, but how small the dick must have been for you to,
Two
to
pump chump, my
go
friend.
to the chapstick and wow.
That small D energy.
Yeah,
very
yeah,
small D.
very.
Energy was very small D in that sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But then, okay, my question is to Kai now.
Oh, okay.
Then, of course, this conversation. Of course, the girls are not entirely safe. You're aware of, they have this anxiety all the time. At least for me, sometimes I feel like I overcompensate
Oh, okay.
so that they feel safe around me. So I don't just exist. I exist and I overcompensate and do stuff so that you feel really safe, not just safe I know him, he's okay, I've worked with him, not just in that sense, safe in the sense that you feel like, okay, I don't have to be panicky when I'm around him. And that's an effort, because I remember just a couple of days ago, I was walking back from Rio, TTDI. So I was like done for the day. I was like pretty dizzy and I was walking. So there's this one dark alley right next to, in between anybody who's familiar with Rio and
Yeah.
Maulana. There's a very dark alley that you walk through.
I know the one.
Yeah.
The car park there. So I was walking through and I just saw a girl. She was running towards me and I got scared. I was like, listen, tonight I'm going to
Someone in
be
the dark
popular.
running. Someone in the dark running
Not
at you
tonight.
is always like
Not
a,
tonight,
oh
sir.
shit.
So she ran towards me and I was like, what happened? She said, oh no, there was a guy following me. I just wanted to come to you because I feel safer. I was like, sister, listen, I am dizzy. If the guy comes here, the probability of you saving me is higher than me saving you. But you know what? I appreciate the thought of you thinking that you feel safe, even though we don't know each other for sure.
Right.
I think at that moment, I felt like, oh, there's such a thing, where girls can pick up this sort of, I don't know if it's social cue or just some energy that...
But it's interesting. Do you see how, this is back to the other example I was giving. Do you see how even in times of danger, we are taught to run to a man?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Go, because you'll be safer there.
You'll be safer there, for sure. That's another thing that I
Not to
didn't
a
want to
group
bring
of
it up.
girls.
The
Go
fact that
run
she
to
walked...
a man.
Yeah.
Mm.
And if you were skinny and scrawny and small and short, she wouldn't have run to you. She wouldn't have. Because even she needs to feel safe with you, but you gotta have a chance at defending her. You know? Yeah.
Thank you. but these are some of the things. These are some of the things I consciously do to stop, because I grew up with sisters. You know, there's 3 of them, and I've listened to their stories. I'm aware of what happens to them, because there were instances where I was walking next to them and they got catcalled. You know, this is when I was younger. You know, I was like a 6-7-year-old boy walking next to my sister who's a lot more older than me, and then you have this guys on motorbike, you know, just doing some noises and catcalling and all that. So as a young guy walking next to my sister, I didn't understand what was this about, and you know, as you grow up, you realize that then these are the things that you don't do, and then sometimes you have to overcompensate so that they really genuinely feel safe around you, not just for the sake.
And that's also not good for the men. It's also not good, because mentally that's also giving you like a fight or flight mode. You know, my kind is so bad, I have to do something so I don't look like that. And then you go into the super protective mode, and then back to square one.
Definitely.
Because you feel that
it goes in circles.
That fight or flight thing, people go like, why are you trying so hard to be extra safe with us? What are you like? Because that's also energy.
And I realize, so this energy, whatever I'm having right now, will probably translate to me telling my daughter, don't go out at night.
Yes.
Because I just want to be, I don't mean this in a negative way, but don't go out, because I know I grew up with sisters, blah, blah. Then, you know, the narrative continues.
Then when you become an uncle or a father or and then it just, I want to save the
trouble.
trouble.
Don't tell girls to not wear coat. When he becomes don't wear coat.
Don't wear as much as you want.
Mindset.
But the thing is, if you are looking at someone's eyeliner and you are already, you look like a prostitute, then I'm actually judging you. You know, because then what is your mindset? I'm not going to allow you around my kids.
I want to see your search algorithm.
I want to know what are you consuming? What is your daily routine is like? Because if you can look at my sister, my daughter, whatever,
and say that,
and just for an eyeliner, I'm already imagining what else you're thinking of my daughter. Then you are not allowed.
I have to say, like in light of all of this that we've been talking about, like, are things actually getting better? You know, like from everything you've mentioned, from Sid sharing, like I have to overcompensate. Are things actually moving in? When I say better, in a position or setting where women feel a little bit safer, or we are making progress in terms of I don't have to gaslight myself, or I don't have to feel like I'm in fight, flight, or even freeze sort of modes of being. What is progress? There are some, like, hey, we can go into a train and there's a women's only section, but then men will just be like, why do I have to stay in this section? Why can't I be in this section? You know, it's like,
Did you guys see the recent
video?
Yeah.
Funnily, you brought it up about this lady's coach, right, in LRT. I remember having this conversation with my friend where, you know, she travels to work nearby LRT. And she said, yes, there are, you know, designated coach, you know, just for the ladies and whatnot. But she said that doesn't even begin to cover it, the issue. Because her argument was, okay, fine, now I'm here, I'm traveling, I'm fine. But my problem starts the moment I get down of the LRT and walking back to my house. You know, what are you going to do about that? You know, it's not about just that specific space, or even like we're talking about car parks, right?
Right.
You know, we know there's so many horrific incidents that actually happen at car parks. So this just providing ladies only car park doesn't do much. You know, there are also cases like the famous case, the infamous case that happened on Twitter where this girl was posting about this man harassing her everywhere that she went.
Was this the one that went overseas?
Overseas, even international as well. This Malay man was following her everywhere.
It's like
so how you providing an all-female LRT coach or parking is covering this whole issue about safety? So I feel like the steps are being taken. Not even baby steps, like very brain cells, like very small steps.
I feel those are basics lah. But basics should have been probably be there for a while. But I feel sometimes our affinity is doing something without addressing the other. You know, going back to the LRT situation, I'm just going to look at it from an infrastructure thing. You give LRT, you give a nice station, then you don't have a proper walkway. You don't have the connecting. So people think twice whether they want to take public transport. I'm telling you, Malaysia has fantastic resources. We have some of the best brains to fix the problems that we have. And then you get this kind of common problem which shouldn't be there. That's one. I mean, that's just looking at it. Infrastructure is one problem. That's another topic. Women's only coach should not have existed in the first place. Everybody should have that feeling, basic feeling of feeling safe, going
Yeah.
wherever they want.
Yeah.
There is a reason why the coach is there. There's an issue.
Like
That's
it
why
shouldn't
it's
have
there.
needed to exist.
Shouldn't.
Yeah.
As far as legal concerns, we have the anti-stalking law passed in 2023. We have that. Protect you from physical stalking, online stalking. So I would really, really advocate women to file complaints if you are being stalked. There are legal frameworks to protect. So please read up. Please protect yourselves. Don't be in the dark. Don't let people dictate things for you. Ask questions. So
Yes, I also want to ask you. I'm going to stop you for a bit. Is it working? From the time they started to today, of course, you're a journalist. Of course, you would have heard different stories.
You've been
Yeah.
following
Is
different
it
things.
working, or is it just there for namesake and it's just doing?
it is there for it to work. It is there for it to work. The legal frameworks are there to make it work. So you have to understand your rights. You have to know what are the laws out there. Talk to the lawyers if you have to. Just have conversations. Have conversations to understand. Read, and then you'll know. Don't be in the dark. Really, reading is a lot. It's a lot of empowering.
Yeah.
So we have it, Lasip. We have the right things in the right places, but how far it's working or not, it depends on how we empower ourselves with the knowledge that we should. Learn your rights. Don't let people dictate things to you all the time. Question things. It's very important. Yeah, people might say you talk a lot, you ask a lot, but yes, you have to. Otherwise, you're just going to take what Tom, Dick, and Harry says and, oh, yeah, it's right. You let men dictate, and then you say, ayo, that fella told me that. Yeah, he may have said things from his perspective.
Yes.
So you've got to then go learn up and see what is there for you. We ask for legal frameworks. We ask for protection. It's there. So we have to make sure, use it. When you are feeling threatened, when you know you are in an unsafe situation, seek and you shall find.
What are your thoughts of people when they say not all men? Because that is the one.
But
That
it's
is the one
always
thing.
men.
Yes.
But it's always men. Sorry, I like you guys. I'm just stating it as it is.
okay.
Not only
No,
do
fair
I
enough.
like and appreciate you guys, but I like and appreciate men. I love men. I have so many people in my life that I hold dear that are men. It's not a gender thing. You know what I mean? It's not. That being said, I'm looking around the world and the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
You know what I
Right.
mean? I saw something yesterday that I saw it onto my timeline and I saw a headline from someone I know that posted about this story of a woman in France. Did you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one. Horrible.
The woman in France.
Okay, so really trigger warning for this.
Okay.
because-
Okay.
But this woman had been raped
Okay.
by over 90 men, all of which were paid for to rape her by her husband. And
He drugged and raped her, and he invited everyone else to do it to her too.
so this was all happening while she was unconscious.
Oh God.
And I don't think it was in like a rapid succession. I mean, this was over this course of 10 years.
10 years. Yeah.
Jeez.
Out of over 90 men, not one of them refused. Not one of them
Spoke out.
spoke out about it, about this happening. Not one. This is almost 100 men. One woman. You know? That's a percentage for you right there.
Yep.
Zero out of almost 100 men decided this is fucked up.
And
And decided
what
it was okay.
And what was
in this case.
disturbing
Yeah.
was, they will always say, a family man could not have done it. He had kids. Well, quite a number of them had family. They were in stable relationships, had children. So they all had families. So they go back to their families looking like the good husband, the good dad, after doing that to that lady. She's 72. She's going on for 10 years. So you can imagine.
She was 72 at the end.
Now she's 72. She pressed charges now. And she went public with it so that everyone can see the faces of the people who did it to her and hers too. She wanted that to be an awareness. And she did say that, she's fighting it and she will come out of it, but she did tell the court, deep inside, she's ruined. She's ruined a lot. You see, so having somebody she married doing that to her, so
That's
terrible.
I had to pull up to the side of the road and park for a second and just kind of, I couldn't believe it. You know what I mean? I couldn't, especially because I had just left a location where I was in a space where I felt safe and I was the only woman there. And because I spend a lot of my time in a gym where oftentimes I'm the only woman there,
right.
And I'm lucky that I have men there that I can trust that go out of their way to make sure the space is safe for everyone, including myself and other women.
Yep.
And that includes people like you guys. Like I can see that you guys go out of your way to make sure. Kai, I've worked with you numerous times now, and the first time we properly worked together was in a show where we both played roles that you were
abusive.
You were abusive, and you went out of your way every single rehearsal, every single show to make sure that I felt safe and that I felt okay with you yelling at me, with you putting your hands on me, with you doing all those things. And I remember singing praises about you and I'm being serious.
Thank you.
Because I just felt really grateful to have a scene partner that made sure I felt safe.
Yeah.
I didn't know you that well before then. So, it could have gone any way.
But honestly, like, thank you for sharing that. But for me, that's just being decent.
It's bare minimum.
Like, the fact that you have to say it as a praise.
Yes.
Part of me is like, thank you, but also like, that should be normal.
It's not.
And it's not, but that's the thing.
Sadly.
It's not.
Okay. We have 3 more minutes left.
We've been talking for 2 hours, guys.
2 hours, guys. Okay,
There's
one
just so
final
much to
question. I just
Go for it.
simplify this. I know it's very difficult to answer this question, but then I do want to know your input. When will you finally feel safe?
when I don't have to keep adjusting my top, I suppose. Not because I'm feeling uncomfortable, but because I'm afraid that I'm being watched.
And I don't know why it has to boil down to how I look, how I present myself. I hate this word presentable. I'm always told to look presentable, be presentable. And this is not just in a professional setting, but always, whether it's from family members or from people that I work with who I know I hope have good intentions when they say that. But I think maybe when I feel like I don't have to consider the word presentable, then maybe that's when. Yeah. And if we're talking about in this country alone, there's so much that hasn't been said. I've just been holding back for real because culturally we haven't even gone there.
we haven't
Like,
touched.
You haven't touched that.
we haven't
Yeah.
mentioned
In specific
Religion.
cultures.
religion.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But Yiz, Mila, thank you so much for sharing your
Yes.
stories and your perspective.
And we're very, very sorry to, this terrible experiences that you guys had. And we're very grateful you guys chose to share it with us and everybody watching and listening to what you guys have to say. It's heartbreaking, like I said, I think at this point, even after listening to this conversation, if anyone listening to this or watching this feels like, oh, not everyone, I would actually recommend for you, just talk to the ladies.
And seriously,
Just ask them.
have an open
Have a
conversation.
Because the kind of stories they'll tell you, they might shock you, they might surprise you. You'll learn a lot. I mean, just speak to your mom about it, I mean, half of the time they don't even know they are in that circle of, they are victim of whatever is being, presented to them. But having said that, thank you so much. I think as men, most importantly, we have to acknowledge the issue.
Yep.
There's no way
talk about it.
for us. There's no way just because we are not. I think the right word is that the arrogance of not molesting a lady should not kick in at any point in your life. Just because you are not doing it, you're not any better than the others.
Right.
You know, so I feel like that arrogance, that I think that's where the not all men comes in. Just because I didn't molest anybody doesn't mean that you're better than them, you know. The fact that you're quiet about it, the fact that you're not doing anything about it, the fact that you're not coming to speak or to give some sort of support, I think that says a lot, than not just, you know, harassing or whatever.
Yeah.
But then, thank you everybody. This has been a great session.
Thank you.
We'll see you in another episode where we'll talk about a lot more interesting stuff. This is Talking Shit with me, Sidhart, Jodev, and
Kai
Chris.
Chalmers. Chris. Thank you, Mila. Thank you, Yis.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Don't forget, we will be back in another episode. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, share, and subscribe, so you'll be notified every time we have a new episode. We'll be bringing new guests, different topic to
More
talk
juice,
about.
more juicy
stuff is coming.
interesting
Follow us
excrement.
on all social media platforms. We are Capo on all platforms. See you. We'll continue the conversation. So, who else you want to drag down?
How much time?
I just need food.
This is going off there. Okay.